Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's tech webinar with ConnectALL. My name is Johnathan McGowan, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about finding bottlenecks and how we can help find bottlenecks within an agile process and help to identify them and help to take steps to remove them. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow through a couple of things. We got a couple of activities that we'll do for this. First, we're going to talk about how you can identify them, of course, and some processes you can do to help identify. And then we're going to talk about how to make sure that things are really bottlenecks. And I'll show you some metrics. We'll get into a little bit about what ConnectALL can do to help with that as well. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and share my screen. And the first thing that we'll talk about is really what is a value stream, okay? So a value stream is really anything. It's really any process that you're doing, whether it's software development, whether it's just something you're doing in life. A value stream is really how you start a process and then the value that's ultimately received from it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to use an example, kind of a fun example here, and we're going to do something like the process that you would do for making coffee in the morning. And for that, let's just put out a basic value stream. Okay, just hold on with me for just a moment. So we're going to go ahead and say that, okay, so you wake up in the morning. Let's find a good person icon over here. We are logged into valuestreammanagement.com. We're using that for this exercise. And it's a free value stream mapping tool that we offer. You can just go ahead and you can go over there and sign up and start making your own value streams. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab an icon over here. And we're going to say that, let's say this is you. Okay, this is you in the morning if you like to drink coffee. And we're going to say you're getting ready for your day. And traditionally what you do is you would go and maybe grab a coffee maker or go fill up a coffee maker. You'd measure out the coffee, and then ultimately you would get a cup of coffee out of that, right? So we can go ahead and plot out this process. It's going to be a little bit of a rough sketch here, but you kind of get the idea. What we can do is come in and we'll make that blank. We don't need those arrows. There we go, just like that. And then we'll draw out something like this too, just to kind of show the process there of making a cup of coffee in the morning. Okay, let's go ahead and go like that too. There we go. Get rid of that arrow as well. Okay, and so now we have a general process there for making coffee. Now, where am I going with this, right? This is all about, you have a need in the morning, you start this work, you're the person over here, you go through your process, you go through your routine of actually making coffee, and then the value that you get out of it is the coffee that helps you start your day, right? Now, you talk with some folks at the office or talk with some folks at work, and you hear about some other things that may, some other ways to potentially make coffee, right? And so we could come over and let's go ahead and come over here, and let's say that somebody else has told you about this other great way that you can make coffee. We're going to say that that's actually going to be through something like a French press. Okay, so in order to get started with that, first we have to We have to boil our water, right? And then we can pull out the French press, and then we're left with the coffee here at the end, just like that. So let's go ahead and draw some lines here too. So you can see, sure enough, already you're starting to identify that there are some more steps in this process, right? So there are some more steps. Getting involved with the French press takes a little bit longer, but the folks who make French press coffee, they swear by it. They say it's the best tasting coffee you will ever get, and it beats the pants off of actually making something with a coffee maker. I personally use a coffee maker, but I do know a lot of folks who do like to use the French press, and they swear by it. And their value, they're getting different value out of it. They're getting the value that they're getting out of it is even though they're still getting coffee, they think the coffee tastes better. They like the coffee that's generated from the French press better than they do from a regular coffee maker. Now, again, where am I going with this? So we can, if the ultimate value is the cup of coffee that we're getting at the end, different people place value on different things, right? Some people just want a cup of coffee and they just want to go the shortest path possible to get that cup of coffee. They value the time, right? They value the time that they want to get it done quick, and then they want to get on with their day. They just need the caffeine. But some people value the taste, and they want, if they're going to drink coffee anyway, they want it to taste good, and so they might go with a little bit longer process. And so as we're going through and mapping out this process, we could say, in this general process, we could say something like, preparing the coffee takes, I don't know, maybe like 4 minutes, right? Because you got to fill up the carafe, and then you got to measure out the coffee and then put it in there. And then to actually do the drip coffee, that would take drip coffee probably about another 5 minutes or so. Okay, we're just going to do approximations here. But if you go this route and we go with the preparation, all we have to do is we just got to boil the water. Boil the water would be probably actually boiling the water itself is going to be about 5 minutes, right? Then taking that, measuring out the coffee, and actually making the coffee is going to take probably about another, 2 or 3 minutes. We'll go with 3 there. And then if we come over here, we could say finally enjoying the coffee in, about another minute after that, after getting everything else. Okay. So you can see here, preparing the coffee here. Actually, let's reduce that just a little bit. I think it takes me about 3 minutes to do that in the morning. So you can see here that there's a difference in time, right? Even though there's a few more steps here, there's a little bit of a difference in time, probably about 8 minutes from start to finish in the preparation to actually enjoying coffee with the drip method. But if you go with the kettle method and actually going through the French press method, we can see that's probably about 8 minutes there, and then an additional minute. So probably about 9 minutes, give or take. Probably takes a little bit longer in real life for both of these processes, but give or take, pretty close. Let's go ahead and we can say, well, we can actually, if you're a person that doesn't like doing either of these things, you can say, well, I really value the time. The time is the most important thing for me. We, of course, cannot forget about doing something like a K-cup, right? K-cup is going to circumvent and throw a wrench in this whole thing, right? And the K-cup is going to say, let's go ahead and map this out real quick. The K-cup is a tool born out of convenience, right? As we improve, of course, our technology over time, we come up with these fascinating ideas like, how about getting things like your coffee almost instantly? And so if we do that, K-cup really just takes 1 minute of preparation and probably something like, 2 minutes of drip coffee. This is great for folks who really are just looking to run out the door, and they're again valuing their time. They don't have time to go through the effort of preparing their kettle and their French press and all that stuff in the morning. They're really just looking to get coffee quick so that they can get out the door and perhaps get on their way to work. Now, that's a lot of talking about something like coffee, right? What in the world does it have to do with anything else? Okay, of course, just by looking at this process, you're starting to manage a value stream, right? You may be accustomed to doing one way of doing, or having one way of doing things. In this case, it's that putting it through the traditional coffee maker. You might have even found ways to split up the process and make it a little bit more efficient. Rather than doing this entire 8-minute process in the morning, you might prepare the coffee the night before. That way, when you wake up in the morning, all you have to do is hit the button. It starts dripping. You go do something else, and when you come back, your coffee is ready. So this method up here at the top is something you can prepare and kind of automate, right? This method in the middle, the French press, even though it probably takes a pretty similar amount of time to the first method, is all very manual. You have to wait until the morning before you can boil your water, because if you boil it overnight, it's not going to be hot anymore. So that's something that you would want to you have to do right then and there in the morning. Okay. You have to then manually do the French press, right? So this is all very manual steps that you have to do. You can't automate any of that. Okay. Whereas the K-Cup is pretty much already done for you. It's just packaged. You just pop it in there, pour in a cup of coffee, pour in a cup of water. A couple minutes later, it's done. So you start to kind of look at, there's different ways of doing this process. Something as simple as making coffee, there's different ways of doing that. And depending on what you value out of this process is going to determine the way that you make it ultimately. You could easily, replace coffee with tea or whatever it is your morning beverage of choice is. But the idea here is that just doing something this simple, you have many different variations of getting the job done, right? And whether or not you value the taste or your time is going to dictate which process you take there. Now, I've spent a long time talking about coffee. Let's get to the actual meat of it. Now, this is hopefully a relatable story with managing this value stream. I bet you didn't even know you were managing that value stream, but sure enough, it is. How does it actually relate to the industry, right? Of course, people make coffee at work too. Your office probably makes coffee. But speaking a little more tactically, we can get into something like value stream management between your processes at work too. And the important part of doing that is visualizing that value stream and laying out all the different things. This will help you to uncover the bottlenecks. Just seeing those processes and seeing those tools will help you to uncover those bottlenecks. I didn't mention them much before, but if we go back over to the coffee example, there are bottlenecks here, right? You have to wait for the coffee to drip, or you have to wait for the water to boil, right? So those are bottlenecks within that process. You can prepare it overnight, but you still have to wait for it to actually prepare. You have to wait for the water to boil. That's why the K-Cup is a much faster process, because you don't have to wait for anything except for that drip, that 2-minute drip in just 1 cup of coffee. So you've removed the bottlenecks from the previous 2 processes by doing something that's prepackaged. So just by laying out a process like that, even in the software industry, that can help you uncover some of those bottlenecks that might exist. You might uncover the things that you manually do, or you might uncover the things that you have to wait for, right? A common culprit of that is copying something from one application to another. A critical incident comes in, but the response time is dependent on somebody picking it up, trying to resolve it, and then escalating it to somebody else. That escalation could be into another tool. It could come into an ITSM tool, and it may need to go into a development tool so that somebody can actually resolve a bug. And then it has to go into coding tools after that and be actually fixed. So those are bottlenecks within the process that you have to wait on, no matter what. So laying out this process can help you identify those things. Now, once you've laid it out there, how do you know how critical a bottleneck is? Well, that's where ConnectALL can come in and actually help you with the measurement. ConnectALL is an application that can help you connect to all these different applications. And some of the things that we do is we help you to visualize, to see your value stream, of course. The other things that we help you do are to automate your value streams. And that automation, just like the coffee maker, automates that some of those processes. That automation can cut out some of the bottlenecks and cut out some of the waste within your process. But then we also help you to measure as well, to really see the effectiveness of your changes. And for that, we have our ConnectALL Insights, and we have something like this over here. You can see here, this would be bottlenecks. This would be tracking the statuses in lots of different applications. So work may start in one application, but then you only really see what happens within that one application. With something like ConnectALL, we can actually get that information from all your different applications and harvest it right here in one centralized view. And then you can start looking at the state changes overall from the entire value stream. You can see that something sits in a prepare state, if we go back to our coffee example, for a long time, or something sits in some sort of in progress state, if we use that analogy again. if you start to actually break down those steps and start to track them and measure them, you can see some examples over here that things in this process actually stay in progress for about 4 days. So probably about a 4-day development cycle, right? But we can see before then um, where we can see where the actual bottlenecks are probably in this improved state. This improved state could either be at the end or it could be at the beginning. Maybe it has to sit in an approved state for a long time before it's actually picked up and goes into the backlog. So somebody approves it, but then it sits there for a long time before. That could be a bandwidth problem. It could be, or it could be just a lot of red tape problem. So there could be processes there that are elongating that approval process. Something could we can actually look up here and see that the QA process is pretty good, about 2.7 days over time. Over here in the last 6 months, this QA process has been 2.7 days. So it takes about 4 days to develop, about 3 days to test. Okay, so you kind of set that as your baseline, and then you can start to really dig in and see things that could be impacting that process, like that approval state that I mentioned there. Is there something we could do to automate and help with that approval process, or do we really need 13 different signatures on something before it's actually approved for release, right? So different questions you can start asking yourself once you're made aware of what's actually happening here and where you're spending this time. Of course, a lot more graphs on this. I'm not gonna cover on all of them, but what it does is it helps you. You can look at that average up there. You can start looking for exceptions over here. Start looking at this candlestick graph to see what's the median time really. So you can factor out any outliers. Give you a little bit more accurate view as to where the actual time spent in each of these states and how many outliers might actually be impacting it. And then you can actually look over here and see over time how many issues were in each state over a given time period. This is actually looking at it day by day, you can see, and you can actually look at the flow of data and see where your process changes might impact this. You can see that in this time period, there were a lot of things stuck in the approved. You actually see over time, that purple is the approved. You can see over time that approved state has started to shrink, right? You can see it was pretty big over here, but you see by the time you get over here, that approval is starting to actually shrink, and we're getting less and less purple over time. So that means that there was probably a process change that has made that a little bit better, right? And so we're not spending quite so much time in that approval state. Okay. Same thing down here for this in review state. You see that yellow down here, this in review, and that yellow has been shrinking as well over time. So you're spending less and less time in that in review state. You're getting more efficient at your reviews, or maybe there's a process change that helped that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to introduce the concept there of value stream and bottlenecks, and try to make it relatable and to something that you may be doing every day. Because you are doing value stream management, like I said, whether you realize it or not, just in your everyday activities. And you do have bottlenecks within those. You do have bottlenecks within your processes. But the idea is that by laying things out like we did in that coffee example, even though I'm sorry it took a couple minutes to draw all that out, I probably could have removed that bottleneck by preparing it ahead of time and having that graph already drawn out. But the value I saw was actually in going through the process, right? So there's again, it was a decision that we had to weigh about the time versus the impact, right? So so different decisions we make that impact our value streams and impact the things that we ultimately end up delivering and doing. So what I'd like to do is, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask. I'm going to pull up the chat over here, and then if anybody does, we'll hang out for a couple more minutes. I know we're at about 20 minutes now, but we're pretty much wrapping up for today. But if you have any other questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them in a couple minutes that we have left. All right. So if you are interested in managing your value streams, and learning more about bottlenecks and the bottlenecks that may exist within your organization. Again, you can take that first step and you could go to valuestreammanagement.com. That valuestreammanagement.com has that free visualizer that's there. And that visualizer can help you to lay out your different applications. You can upload your own custom icons. We have some templates there that you can use to help get you started. And that's completely free. You can go sign up and start mapping out those streams that you have. Now, if you want to know more, if you actually want to see a demonstration or learn about how ConnectALL can help you within your software lifecycle, you can feel free to reach out to us at sales@connectall.com. We would love to hear from you. And with that, I hope that you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. And we will see you next time.